Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. This is the Wednesday, July 26th edition of the Carolina Weather Group. Hard to believe it's the last Wednesday of July. Seems like we're just talking about the beginning of tropical season. Now we're 2 months into it, and tonight we have a great guest along with us tonight, Mike Bolin from SpaghettiModels.com or Mike's weather page. We were just talking about that before the show, so I'm sure if you've been into any tropical meteorology, you've used Mike's page, and we're happy to have him on tonight as our guest. But this is a live broadcast, so feel free to interact with us tonight. You can do that several ways. I know you may be watching on Facebook Live or Periscope, YouTube. James has got the gander of things going on, so however you're watching us tonight, you can interact with us by leaving us a message on Twitter, Carolina WX Group, or our individual Twitter pages, or the Carolina Weather Group page on Facebook. We'll be able to monitor those throughout the show and ask any questions if need be. I see that James is hand signaling. Are you good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, he's good. All right, so yeah, and if you're listening to the rebroadcast or the podcast later on in the week, we'll let Mike share how you can get in touch with him towards the end of the show. So that's our show tonight. We're really excited to have Mike on. Glad it's not really active, so that activity is not taking him away from the Tonight Show. So Mike, thanks for coming on. We'll let you introduce yourself here in just a little bit. Before we do that, let's go around the panel and let everyone introduce themselves and kind of talk about how the week's been so far weather-wise. So we'll start off in the Mississippi River area with Eric Perseus tonight from Memphis, Tennessee. Eric, how are you doing?
Hey, good evening, Scotty. Hello to everybody else. I am wiping sweat as I sit here waiting for the cold front to come on Friday. It's been a hot couple of weeks. We've been under heat advisories just about every day except for maybe one or two over the last 7 or 8 days. And excessive heat warning today, heat indices around 110, temperatures 95 to 97, and gotta love the dew points when they get to like 78. So it's basically we're living in an Iowa cornfield here. So, but there is some relief on the horizon. Front that's going to make it down through the Midwest is going to push all the way through, it looks like, which is a little unusual for late July here. But we're looking forward to some cooler weather, some sunshine this weekend, and hopefully no severe weather on Friday when it comes through, but can't completely rule it out. So that's it from the Western Bureau.
Sounds good. Yeah, we're watching that cold front as well. Looks like we could see a outbreak of storms on Friday, maybe some severe here in the Carolinas as well. So I know you guys are excited about the cold front. I like the heat and humidity, so I'm not really wanting the dew points in the 50s yet. I mean, it's not time for it to be that way.
Yeah, the heat is not that bad. It's when those dew points get above 70, 75, it's a little much.
It is. So let's go over to just to the east of you in Bristol, Tennessee. Let's bring in Ricky Matthews. Ricky, how's things up in the Tri-Cities?
Pretty good. We're had very few clouds today. It was kind of boring to look at the GO 16 imagery for once because there was not a whole lot to see on it. But hey, that's a good thing every once in a while. We're just like Eric, we're expecting the chance for a few thunderstorms in the coming days as that cold front moves east. Have a really, really big marginal risk zone encompassing us tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. Good to have a few thunderstorms, and otherwise it's kind of hot, humid, pretty typical July weather.
It's those marginal days we have to watch, right?
That's what I told Chris the other day. He was like, oh, we've been downgraded from a slight. I was like, well, time for the outbreak.
That's right. You got to watch those marginal days. Let's go to the Queen City tonight where, James, I think this was the first time since late June that you guys didn't reach the 90-degree mark.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Scotty, but that may be right. Matter of fact, it was actually kind of pleasant out today. It was not the most beautiful of days, cloudy at times here in the Queen City, but you know what? I took that as a nice break from the action after all of the heat last week. Matter of fact, if you joined us here in the Carolina Weather Group in recent weeks, you know that the little thermometer I keep in my window had climbed up to 117 at one point. We didn't get that high today, and I'm thankful for that, Scotty.
Well, what was your high today in the windowsill?
The high today was I was working from Starbucks and not paying attention to the thermometer.
Oh.
So it says it got up to 77 in the room, but when we were at 117, this was actually in the window. So I do not have an accurate comparison for you. I apologize.
Speaking of Starbucks, did you meet Peter? I mean, was Peter with you today?
No, Peter was not with me today, but I'm sure Peter was out gallivanting and getting his daily Starbucks. Peter, are you there? What is your daily Starbucks run menu item?
A cafe Americano decaf.
Oh, do they know that? Like when you walk in, do they just see your face and instantly start making it?
They do. It's that bad. Yeah.
But it's funny. Sometimes they don't get your name right on the cup, correct?
Yeah, they don't. They always mess up the name, but they get my drink right. So I don't know what the problem is.
Well, I guess if you want to be messed up on something, it'd rather be your name than your drink, right?
Makes me wonder if you're getting your drink or someone else's.
Well, you've been
that's
drinking
true.
all that Starbucks because it's been pretty stormy up there, correct?
Where do I even begin? It's been unbelievable up here. All of last week we were in a heat wave. Temperatures all in the 90s, like mid 90s for the entire week. From pretty much Tuesday all the way through Saturday. Heat index over 100, a couple excessive heat warnings in there. And then, of course, you know what happens when we have to break the heat wave. You have to get an eruption of severe storms, and that's exactly what happened. Saturday night, we had a couple scattered things, nothing big deal. But then Sunday night was, like, insane. It felt like we had a tropical system here. Tornado warnings in a couple spots. There's actually an EF2 confirmed in County, Maryland, destroyed a couple houses and stuff. And we actually had a water spout, I think, out in the Atlantic near the Jersey Shore. Luckily, it didn't damage anything. I don't think anybody could really see it if anything popped down. So, really popped down or not, but the rotation was pretty good on velocity. Now, Monday, we had another severe storm come by. Like Sunday night and Monday. It was just ridiculous how much lightning there was. And I just complained the other day that this season's been really sucky so far. I guess I should have kept my mouth shut. But yesterday and today have been really nice in the 70s, and we're heating up again. Some more storms tomorrow and Friday again. Marginal risks are out, so we'll see what happens.
You got to watch those marginal risks. I know it's been active.
Yes, you do.
That's what happens when you start complaining about the weather. You get too much.
I should have kept my
welcome to
mouth
our
shut.
world, Pete.
All right. Well,
Yeah, thank you guys for bringing that up.
Let's bring in Shay Gibson tonight from Charleston. Shay, how's things been? And I'll let you bring in our guests as well.
Sure, yeah, Charleston. I tell you, we've had sort of a mixed bag of thunderstorms here and heat. So coming down off of a heat wave, we got several thunderstorms. Really, really strong sea breeze on Sunday. There's been some really unique features with convective activity here along the southeast coast. Typically, you have a west to east drifting thunderstorm type that meets along the sea breeze front, and then you have that sort of thunderstorm effect. But these came down from the north, and those are especially gnarly storms when they happen here because they're packed with hail, and there's a lot more rotation to it. No tornadoes or anything, but very slow-moving storms, and they tend to feed off of urban heat island effects. So you have this continuous storming for hours. We had that yesterday. And then that continued into today. We actually had a little bit of an easterly wedge along the coast shift the movement of storms from the north to south, from more of an east to west. And that spawned some really interesting activity. We had water spouts this morning just off the coast during those really light inversionary storms in the morning. And then as we got into the afternoon, we had a full-blown shelf cloud approaching from the northeast. So I'll go ahead and present my screen to show you the Hilton Head waterspout. These are pretty common down the Hilton Head, Edisto area where these coastal breaks are. You get this really light wind that kind of cuts through from the land breezing from inland to the ocean, and then out in the ocean you have a very light sea breeze that meets it, and that's all you need is about anywhere from 3 to 7 knots of wind to get this rotation at the surface going, and then you build your waterspout up to the top. This is the classic waterspout for the Hilton Head area. Really neat to see though. And Weather Service did call it. They forecast that also probably for the next few days while we have a front sort of draped through the area. So we're just sort of mild and muggy right now. A little bit on the cooler side, but definitely mosquito breeding weather. So sea surface temperatures are mid 80s, about 85.5 degrees. And it looks like we're going to have sort of a weak pattern the next few days. It might break on Friday and make it the sea breezes back up to cool things down a little bit and get some air movement and get the stagnation out. So, you know, these are the days that we can't stand because you get this water, the ground is wet you have standing water in places, and the mosquitoes just, boy, they come out pretty bad here in the Southeast. So with that said, I usually do a segment on tropics, but tonight we have Mike Boylan with us. He is with Mike's weather page and spaghettimodels.com. He developed that website, which a lot of meteorologists, myself included, we have been, following his site for many, many years now. He's been an asset to the community, and he's been featured many times on the news and in other various sources. I think even some of the National Weather Service offices use his site from time to time to get some quick access to products that he has, and he's put a lot of time and effort into it. I'll sort of introduce you, Mike, if you want to just tell us who you are, and also I know a couple of the guys here, Scotty and Ricky, would love to hear about NASCAR as well. You're really into NASCAR. You go to the NASCAR events, and you also host RC car events. I mean, you're a pretty busy individual. You keep your weather page going, and you have all these hobbies, and your daughter's softball as well. I mean, you're really involved with that. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. Hey, guys. First off, thanks for having me on your show. And I feel honored to be with some real meteorologists. I've always joked I'm more of a amateur meteorologist. But yeah, the site has been a hobby of mine back in 2004, living here in Florida when it was impossible to find spaghetti models. I mean, it was a constant search for me to try to figure out, they'd show them on the news, and find them on the internet was next to impossible. So I pretty much just designed the site originally for myself. I had a hidden domain, shared it with some friends and family, and every year it's just been a hobby kind of progressing to to now 2000. What is it now? It's 2017. So
your focus is mainly on the tropics, but you've also started branching out. I've seen in the last couple of 2 to 3 years, sort of did some coverages into the wintertime as well, even some of the storm activities in the spring. You jump on a little bit early. Tell us a little bit about what got you involved with weather in the first place. Like what got you interested in weather?
I think living in Florida has been, my biggest attraction to weather. My grandfather used to track hurricanes, going to Publix and getting the charts. My dad told me, he's passed now, but my dad told me, how he in the 50s and 60s, and then, I'm not exact on the years, but in the 50s when they lived over in O'Galley, which is now Melbourne, they got hit like year after year, it seemed like. So I think it just got carried down, into my blood basically. And, the hurricane seasons, like, I still do this to this day. Like, you go to bed, you have this big wonder what's going on with the cone. It's, at the time it was only Weather Channel with their red cones, but you wake up in the morning, and you're like, oh God, the first thing you do is flip on the TV, because you're like, where's it going now? And people share that same passion now. And, that's the spaghetti models. It's the what if, I was looking at the 8 o'clock advisory that just came out now with our new system. And, now the wording from the NHC is a little bit more, not acting like it's going to dissipate, like, hey, slow development may occur. So not that you get excited, you just, it's just hard to explain. But I mean, there's thousands of people out there like us that love to track these things. I mean, it's a weird addiction.
Yeah, I hear you. It's the big chase. We always, I remember following Alex in January of last year, and the other folks at Weatherflip thought I was nuts. But I'm like, I'm telling you, the thing is, it's heading eastward and into warmer waters. And so, yeah, I mean, we totally get the chase of it all. So you more or less, you're more active with tropics, but do you find that you're also just as interested in other weather as well during the other parts of the season that you started doing?
Oh, definitely. SPC is a whole realm of their own. I mean, the website with all their products that the SPC has, for especially in the springtime with tornadoes, and even for you guys coming up, there's a late front coming through, it looks like, and there's storms, brewing like almost like a nor'easter. So, that's a great product. The wintertime, I kind of shift focus on the winter and do a lot of snowfall potentials. And so, yeah, it's pretty much 365 days now. But it seems like once tropics start, I don't want to drown the page with, everything else, try to keep it all tropics. But yeah, rainfall forecasts. I mean, it seems like every year I get more involved with, this year, like we were talking yesterday, your expertise is Sal and the Saharan dust. And that's a whole topic on its own, but that seems to be the hot topic this year. And, so, there's always something to learn and, throw into the mix. I just think there's just so many variables. That's why, there's no exact science. I mean, even the highest up experts are humbled a lot because these systems just do what they want, and that keeps us all intrigued, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've seen that with rapid intensification of hurricane in the last couple of years, where we're like, just wow, okay.
Yeah.
The studies are starting to get deeper on what the cause of that is. But you have quite a following. I mean, you have last year alone, you started doing Facebook Live. Tell us a little bit about your social media, sort of what you do. I mean, when you start the season out with hurricane season, and then something comes up. What is your sort of your method that you use?
Yeah, the method to my madness. Well, I read a lot of message boards. I'm addicted to Weather Underground, has a great blog. Of course, Twitter now. I've gotten more involved with Twitter, and you just start to get a gut feeling, I guess, on systems. Of course, Levi's site, Tropical Tidbits. Before it was possible to see really good, clean models, but now there's so many great models out there, and the GFS and Euro and UK, and you just start to get a feeling. I guess what I do is, you start to feel and hear the buzz. You make your own determination whether or not you're going to follow through and advertise that. So a lot of times, you're putting something out there, you better be kind of confident that there's a chance. So I'm usually, I usually hesitant right away on if I'm going to mention something long term. But I'm not afraid to go out there, 10 days out, and 9 times out of 10, the system will at least be a wave. It might not turn into a full blown hurricane, but people like to stay ahead, I think, of the NHC as far as the what if scenario, and so that's that's where we're at. I mean, it's, now this new wave coming up, and I keep seeing so many posts about the MJO and some big wave, next week, I guess some of that Kelvin wave, or that's a whole topic way above my head. But I do know the MJO is a huge factor with Atlantic suppression or uprising of storms, and so next week we might be looking at a system racing across the Atlantic. So that's my focus now, is kind of feeling if that's going to be a reality or not. So I'll start putting that on social media, and people share it, and and the discussions start. So it's just kind of a slow process, I guess. You get the ball rolling, and you kind of feel the intensity come up, because Facebook will show you views on a site, and you can get and my website, I have a tracker on it, so I'll get a feeling on. Normally I'll put a post or a picture up, and I'll get 7,000-8,000 likes or views, but when there's a system, it might go to 30,000, 40,000. So I know, like, oh my God, the public is like into this,
So, Mike, you're talking about social media, and social media has really taken off, let's say, in the past 3 or 4 years, especially in the weather community. How have you seen that change what you do from pre-social media till now? Almost all the weather information you get is on social media before you even really do a lot of research.
Well, yeah, and you have seen a lot of people do, like, I mean, my site's Mike's Weather Page, so I don't have any affiliation whatsoever as far as something official. But there are a lot of official sites out there, and I think, the NHC is scared of that, because they've shut some down, and they've actually, shown some a couple years ago. They were showing a lot of scare tactics. So I think there's a lot more people trying to do what I'm doing, but my site, to me, is what I do this for. So social media is just a way for me to drive traffic basically to the site. And, we have a good core group of fans. I think there's rarely anybody starting any trouble, and, everybody seems to have a good level head on their shoulders. And it's amazing that we can have thousands of people discuss, and it ends up real civil. So yeah, the social media is good and it's bad. I mean, it's definitely, I think, going to be more of a problem down the road, because there's going to be so much information. People aren't going to know who to follow. I mean, it amazes me. Hundreds and hundreds of people will say that, like, I'm their source of news, and not that it scares me, because, it's good that I'm actually, helping the community out. But yeah, if these people are getting their source of news from somebody that's not being very responsible, it's going to be, and there's people out there doing that, a lot of, like, oh my God, a Cat 5 heading to Louisiana, so that, I think we're going to enter a time that's going to be, it's going to have to get controlled, and that might be me too. But I wanted to change my name to, like, something official, but they're not going to kill Mike's weather page, because who the heck's Mike?
So I'll follow up on that, Mike, and good to meet you. I've used your site before too. It's really, really good. So talking a little bit about the social media aspect and kind of the responsibility that comes with that, and understand the same thing from my perspective here in Memphis. And it seems like once you start to get a following like that, then you're relied on. People start asking for the information. And so I guess I'll ask a little bit about maybe, the burden that you feel to, not miss a storm, be there whenever something comes up. And then also maybe a follow on to that is, when most of the time when you get these large followings, most of the people have come to you and they're, they already have this trust in you. But how much do you get of, you're talking about a storm 10 days out. This is just hype. Why are we paying attention to this? I think more of that comes with probably, the TV stations and some of that kind of thing. But if you would touch on both of those.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, I do feel a little more tension now because there are so many people following. I get a lot of, questions, individual questions, and I actually try to answer them. But, I don't want life and death situations, especially like during Matthew, man. I had people asking me every 5 minutes, I'd get a text, should I evacuate? Should I not? And, I try to make real clear, follow, National Weather Service or National Hurricane Center, and so I'm very careful, I guess, in wording more than I used to be as far as if, chances without any definites. So people, if I ever had to go back and say, hey, look, I said, there is a slim possibility, but people, I think my tone goes up when I believe something's going to happen. And I think people respect that. And, it's just been working. It's hard to explain. But I know, like you mentioned, the local meteorologists and Weather Channel and whatnot, they hate people like us because we can go out on a limb, and with all these models at our disposal now, they can't go out there and say, hey, look, 10 days away, there might be a system near in the Lesser Antilles because, that's like a crapshoot. But, we can. And so you just better be right, I guess, when you're, and people are going to choose who to follow. I mean, that's the thing. I do know that. I see people are real quick to unlike. And, that's just a game you play, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mike. There's sort of a responsible way to do it, and then there's an irresponsible way to do it when you're talking about systems far out, and especially in modeling, where you never know. You never know if the ECMWF, the Euro, or the GFS are going to nail it at 10 days. But when you bring it up to your audience, your manner of delivery and your method of delivery is very key. It's important. You do a pretty good job of that because you say, hey, look, we're looking at something right now. It's got some upper shear ahead, or it's got, you put some science to it. So we're watching it, and then that gets people's ears tuned, which is good because it brings awareness up that the tropics are active. We are in the hurricane season, and we're breaking complacency by doing that. So it's important that you keep going. How do you convey the message? Like, you're looking at a system, these people are watching for your input. What sort of things do you look for when a tropical system starts to develop? When you go from a wave to maybe even a depression?
Well, like for example, this time of year, I'm watching this front too. I think I've seen this many seasons. We're so focused on a system out in the Atlantic. We're getting this front coming down all the way to Florida. We're expecting rain Monday, Tuesday, and it's a pretty potent little front. Sometimes we get the tail ends of these things in the Gulf spin up. So that's a little spot to watch. Like, I wouldn't put that out there now, but maybe in a day or two, if models keep showing the front, holding together, coming down, I'll tease people with it. And, dealing with the Atlantic, with your SAL, upper shear, you look at historical, we're going into August. It's just common. I think what happened in the last couple model runs on systems that never developed, people are getting so glued to models that, everywhere you look, you see somebody posting a model run, and maybe people, a little bit of common sense is being lost as far as the factors that make up tropical systems, and somebody just posted, in fact, we could try the screen share thing real quick. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm new to this, but let's share it real quick. Let's see if you can pop it over here. This is an image I just saw today, just about an hour ago, showing the water vapor for the Atlantic, and it's pretty moist. The reds and oranges I'm not sure. This is more mid-level, upper level stuff, but it's starting to show you that the Atlantic is getting a little moist, and that's one factor you look at, obviously, and so you just kind of look at several factors, I think, when you talking about systems this far out, and even the wording now with NHC, their 8 o'clock advisory, you can kind of read in between the lines and their wording too. And now their 8 o'clock says slow development is possible over the next several days. Where earlier, it said if it develops. So, you just there's just so many factors. This MJ. I look at the MJO pulse coming. The SAL is kind of lifting up. The system's a little bit of a low rider. So it's just it changes daily. So you kind of got to go with trends. You can't make knee-jerk reactions too.
Exactly. Give us a we want to get to some of the viewer questions because we're starting to see some questions coming up. I wanted to give you an opportunity real quick to present your website and sort of briefly go over it if you want to pull that up or anything else that you want to present over the next couple of minutes or so, and then we'll start to get to some of the viewer questions. Okay.
Well, I mean, the site is right here. I guess it's popped up. There's a million links on it. There's no magic to the site. I mean, like I said, it originated as for friends and family, and it's kind of for my personal use. Like, I put up top. I don't even think a lot of people notice these things, but you have Tropic Stuff 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are cool pages that some people might not even know exist. So if you're ever bored one day, anything blue is a link. And these are all the cool tools that people post online. And you're like, oh man, how'd they find that? So what I'll do is I'll find it. And basically it's for me, for my own, this is a real popular one that they were posting a lot last year, and it took me forever to find it, but it's the ensemble tracks of, here, let's get to, let's see right here. There we go. These are the pop-up, and it's more DFS, but so I got Hurricane Recon from the National Hurricane Center. So all the pretty much it's a smorgasbord. One time Jim Cantori called it a one-stop shop. I got some cool links up here. People sent me 16-day forecast. Which let me see if it'll work here for old tomorrow, but it's pretty cool. I mean, I think I have more links on there than people even realize. But as far as the big heavy stuff, we got the water temps, the heat potential showing the depth of the water, which is definitely getting more impressive here. This is the heat potential that actually reaches down below the sea surface, and that looks pretty high for this time of year. So that's all signs pointing to potential tropics heating up. We got your wind shear maps. As this one's being shared a lot lately. Something new they added this year was the color, so it makes life a whole lot easier, showing the different ranges of the speed, and then your upper level winds are in peach. So it's a good tool. You can see upper level lows here. We got one down there by Key West. We got Africa. I got Africa links. I mean, you were mentioning to me last night we're going to have a new ASCAT or something similar to it with the winds, but this is a site that everybody always clicks on when we get initial systems before we can get hurricane hunters out there.
That's a neat product. I think the Cygnus rocket launch from last year put up an 8 constellation satellite system that's going to be enhancing or supplementing the advanced scatterometer readings. So you see the surface winds there. That's how we're getting Dvorak technique or method of naming a system without having recon go into it. So that's a neat product. But yeah, I mean, you have that in there. You've got this.
This is
like
a real
precipitable water map here.
Yeah, this is another one that a lot of people share. And it shows you the moisture in the atmosphere, and you can definitely when we get a system, you'll start to see spin. Like this is the ITCZ down here, but this you'll see right here, like right now, right below the about 30 near the 30 mark there, we're starting to see a little spin. so it's another good tool. I mean, it shows, it definitely shows you there's moisture down there, and you'll definitely, you'll start to see a spin work its way across. Another good tool for that. And, I love the surface analysis charts. Always a good tool, for local forecasts. In fact, there's yours for a couple of days from now, showing our front coming in with some pretty big flooding and severe storm risk. Something you really don't see this late in the year. So these fronts dipping down are something new this year, I've noticed. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like they're coming down a little farther south than normal. They
usually come here to die. We even had Helicity Designs, which I'm going to mention them on the show tonight. Have a shirt, and I have it. I'm going to bring it on, show it in a little while. I finally got mine. It says "Where Fronts Come to Die," and it has a picture of the Southeast region. So I'll show that in a bit.
Well, this year's Florida.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see the spin. This is another thing I learned. Every year I'm learning something. Like I said, I don't claim to be an expert or anything, but these winds down here, it's fascinating to see the clash of winds develop, and we get this spin on these systems, and with the Null School map here now, you can really see the directional winds, and these systems break off. So this one's definitely got a shot. I mean, it's got the winds, whether or not it can separate itself. But it's tightening up a little bit. That's probably why the NHC, they bumped it up to 30% now. So I'm sure this is a tool. There's so many tools to look at, but this definitely showing you the tight little wrap up, trying to form down there. But, of course, we got your all's link here, the wind alert site with a million buttons there on its own, which I use all the time for winds. I love it.
And we thank you for that. Especially
boating here in the Tampa Bay. But that's a quick rundown. I mean, we got endless, and as I tell my fans all the time, every week or two I'll get a link to a new page or something, and I'm more than happy to put it on. So, anybody out there watching, I found this full screen radar the other day, which is super clean, which Google Earth, I really love it. So it's always changing. It's like a menu. You guys pick the menu, and I'll put it on there. So,
okay, I think we need to go ahead and go to James, and he's going to start. We have some viewer questions and some viewer commentaries from Facebook. Is that correct?
We do. That is right, Shay. Mike is getting lots of love. We'll go ahead and pop some of these questions up on the screen here. And we do have one particular question that came in that I wanted to maybe ask Mike or even expand it out to our panelists to get a vibe for what they're seeing. But this is Steven watching tonight on Facebook Live. Steven, thanks so much for liking Mike's weather page and the Carolina Weather Group. He is in the Florida Panhandle and wants to know kind of our take on whether or not we might start to see an August uptick, whether we're seeing signs for that out there or even just statistically if we start to see an uptick in August. And Mike, you want us to come to you first, or should we go through our panel and discuss the month of August a little?
Yeah, I think I've hogged your all show enough. I want to hear what you have to say, because I need to learn some information here.
Well, what about you, Shay? You live along the coast. Are you watching anything in particular, or the August month in general? Does that stick out to you? Oh, I think Shay must have just went to go get his Helicity's Design T-shirt.
I'll jump in from a climatological standpoint. Yeah, we typically do start to see somewhat of an increase as we go into August. Really, I think the main thing in my mind that's still going to be a determining factor is dry air coming off Africa. We've had a ton of dry air recently, and we're going to have to see what happens to that and whether anything can get going. I thought it was interesting, though, how we've already had a few deep tropical systems so far this year. Be interested to see, Mike, if that continues as we go into August and September.
Yes, and I just think we are. I don't know. You just get that feeling that not that we're due, but just I think the dry air is slowly lifting away, and the sea surface temperatures are boiling hot, and this high the high pressure in the Atlantic is pretty strong. We're eventually going to get into one of those patterns where it's going to kick these suckers more west. And yeah, I just don't see I don't see anything suppressing it. This is my hunch. I don't know.
and Mike, what you have up on the screen right now is always a good factor too, because folks may not realize that each month we have kind of a traditional set of currents and winds, and what you have up on the screen here is August in particular.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, and I'll switch it. This is August now. Let's go. I'll go to July. Now look at the huge difference. I mean, here's July. and this is NOAA NHC base. I think it's maybe 100-year history. I'm not 100% on that, but look at July. We have almost nothing. Okay, and then it's bam. August. It's like gets going, and then we go to people forget September. You think holy cow, it's getting toward the end of the year, and that's really our. And think about Sandy. That was October. So we got 3 more months of heavy tropical season coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike,
go ahead, Shay. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to make one quick point. Know that we've had 4 named storms in the Atlantic Basin this year, and the accumulated cyclone energy is extremely low, where we should be at like a number. And I know viewers may not be aware of these numbers, but a 6 is still kind of low, and that's based off of maybe 1 or 2 small systems. But we've had 4 named storms, and we're only at 3.735. So that means there's been a lot of factors at work working against these systems, even though there's been some development in the main development region. So Mike has up here, he has the Saharan air layer. This has been a really important factor. And then Mike, I'll let you go ahead and explain.
Yeah, well, that's your section. I've learned it all from you. But there is a phenomenon, with dry air blowing in off of Africa, and it's actually dust. I mean, bottom line, it dries. It's dry air in the upper, middle to upper atmosphere, but it's actual dust. And they talk about it all the way to, Miami here in Florida. It'll make like beautiful sunsets. But you can see it curling off of Africa right here. This is, I think it's probably about a 4 or 5 day track here. But, and then you'll get these pockets. Like right now, our system that NHC is watching actually has a little break in the dust. The red's the heavy stuff, and it has, on the head of it, it looks like it's thinning out a little bit. And you all have seen it many times. And one thing I have learned over the years is, soon as a system digests any amount of dry air, these systems will build a moisture field, and they could spin on their own. Larger systems obviously have a harder time with a moisture field. But once this dry air gets involved, intrudes into the middle upper atmosphere, it just boom. It's like lights out, death, and I think that's why the NHC, you just never know. You don't know if a system's going to ingest it or not. And this typically dies down in August. Then these systems are like, full speed ahead.
Yeah, speaking of August, Mike, if memory serves me correct, and I thank Austin Reed, who was watching on Facebook, for reminding me of this, that 2004-2005 season, this is kind of when that gas pedal went all the way down to the floor and really started to explode. I'm curious to know, looking back on years like that, what sticks out from years past, like a 2003, 2004, 2005, Mike, in your experience that kind of sticks out in your mind when you look back at the history of your monitoring and your website?
Well, I just got started in those years, but we had these systems, coming off of Africa, and they had no, we had low shear and no dust, it seemed like, and they, we had 4 back to back to back. I mean, I remember living here, and we had Hurricane Charlie came up, which actually formed down more in the Caribbean. But then we had Gene, and my little map here. This actually, this I don't know. You got, well, we'll flip it here in a minute. But we had Gene, Francis, Charlie, and Ivan that year all hit Florida. So and Gene and Ivan the following year, or Katrina the following year. Those were some pretty big storylines. So I think the high pressure was stronger then, allowing these systems to push more of a direct path. And the last few years, it seems like the high pressure has not has been as dominant. So these systems, started to curve into the 2000s and early 2010, 11, 12. It seemed like we didn't have these systems make their way towards the U.S. coast. So I guess if I was to say then a lot stronger high pressure, enabling these systems, and that's kind of what the setup is. It seems like this year because the high pressure seems really strong right now.
So, Mike, do you factor in the La Nina years? I think 2010-11 became more of La Nina pattern. We're sort of in neutral phase right now. I think we're leaning towards another El Nino, but it's really uncertain right now. How do you feel that may factor into this year's forecast?
Honestly, I haven't been as sold, I guess, with those forecasts. Maybe, it seems like more homegrown systems have formed on years, that we were, we're not supposed to have these Atlantic systems pop up. I think we're always prone to homegrown systems, in the Gulf or Caribbean or off the coastal U.S. This year, after our MDR, main development region season is when we shift back towards, close to home. So what makes this season possibly a little more active than others is we might have more Atlantic systems that we haven't had in years past. I think we're definitely going to have end of the year systems, close to home in the Caribbean and all. I mean, the water's blazing hot and just typically shear's almost non-existent. It just comes down to dry air. But, I think that's why everybody's bumped up their forecast this year. Just it seems like the Atlantic, with Africa already spitting off a lot of waves way early in the season. Now here's a good map right now of, current Africa satellite. And, it's just already spitting them out, and that's the experts say, when it's real active this early in the year for Africa, they're going to be the next couple months, more than average.
Mike, as we're looking at your screen share, did I hear you at one point reach for like a map? Do you have something there in your home office that is of particular interest to share?
Well, yeah. Well, I told Shay last night we had a little practice. Let's see if it comes up here. This is my Florida map from back when I started. Let's see, 2004. I'll try to get the glare off of it here, but it shows. All four of our storms coming through Florida.
Wow. Yeah, very busy year for you to good timing on the site.
Yeah, and then there was one spot in Florida that actually had all three systems. It was in the middle. I think it was frost proof or something. But it had Charlie go through it, Francis went through it, and then Gene went through it all in the same year. I mean, those poor people, they evacuated to the center of the state and got hit by 3 hurricanes.
Yeah, that was wild. I remember watching all that and just, the National Guard coming in, people trying to come home, then they were told to leave, and when they come home again, they're told to leave, and wow, yeah, that was super busy.
Yeah, look at Gene. Like, we haven't had this in a long time, and this always reminds me, like, when we see spaghetti models and the certainty of models, and none of the models will ever do this little loop-de-doop anymore, and it did it that year. Gene actually was forecast to go out to sea, and it ran into a huge high pressure, and then it got kicked right back into Florida. And I don't believe the models then were forecasting that. In fact, I'm pretty certain they weren't. I'll have to do some history. And then, of course, you asked before some of my fondest memories growing up, but in '85, Hurricane Elena off the coast of Florida, we had family in town. It was later in the year, I think Labor Day weekend. It was Jerry Lewis Telethon. And that system just sat out there and spun around in circles, and they didn't know where it was going. We haven't had one of those in a while, and we will again. So that's really going to make people crazy because the models aren't going to show. And that's what happened with Sandy. We had the battle of the high pressure. GFS had it. Finding a hole going out to sea, and Euro had a blocking high pressure and pushed it back into the upper northeast, and that's always a battle.
Mike, that's a good point you bring up there, and this is something we bring up pretty frequently when we talk about the tropics. I know we had Hurricane Matthew last year that kind of brushed Florida. At one point, it was forecasted to come inland there near Cape Canaveral, but it kind of brushed Florida. We did have Hermine last year. It was a Category 1, but it's been, I think, since 2005 since we've had a major hurricane that's actually hit the peninsula of Florida. You live in the Tampa Bay area, which has been really kind of sheltered. What is your thoughts there in the Tampa Bay area and in general, the whole population of Florida? You know, we're going on 10, 11 years since a major hurricane has hit that state. And I'm sure, you know, there's people that come in and set up residency in Florida all the time that's just really not experienced that.
No, and, you know, the Tampa area is really, it's not scary. It's just, we're on Pinellas County is on a little peninsula, and of course we've had a tropical storm come through the bay. I think it was Andrea maybe a couple of years back. I had to check on that, but I mean, we had the bridges closed. I mean, it actually, storm surge just from a tropical storm raised, you know, we lost all 3 bridges. They had to close down, and then the Skyway Bridge will shut down for high wind. So yeah, it could be a mess, you know, as far as evacuations go. And the you know, Matthew was a good test. I mean, it didn't make that turn, which was a good thing, and all the winds were tight, you know. And again, a lot of cry wolf syndrome. I hate it for, you know, the weather world is you know, you always you know, expect the worst, and of course when it doesn't happen, the next time it does happen, you know, people are going to get caught off guard. But you know, the winds are so tight that just a couple shifts, that's what we were talking so much about with Matthew, you know, 20-mile shift to the west, holy moly, it would have wiped out the whole east coast of Florida, you know. Very lucky. So it's, you know, it's just, it's going to happen. It's just, I mean, you know, insurance rates are still high from 2004. Tourism's back, but yeah, it'll set Florida back, no doubt.
And you live in Oldsmar in the Tampa Bay area, so Hermine came kind of close there too. I mean, you had some of that southerly component to it. Nothing along the Gulf Coast in several years. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's odd, and I think you get in trouble for saying it's overdue, but I mean it is overdue. I mean, you know, if you look at the Gulf, it's just blazing hot, you know, and you know, all these signs, you know, the Caribbean toward the end of the year, it's just, I think we're bound. I mean, look at the Pacific right now. You know, they always say when the Pacific's active, it's like an old wives' tale. You know, when the Pacific's active, Atlantic is slow. Well, Pacific is extremely active, and if it has anything to do with the Kelvin Way or MJO, and it shifts over to our side, then some of the Twitter feeds I'm reading from higher up experts are really expecting a big boom in August if that energy from the Pacific shifts over to the Atlantic side.
Yeah, if they get enough energy, if they get enough storms, it'll just cool the surface. I mean,
yeah, and I don't understand how Pacific can always fire. You know, God, they just seem like one storm after another, and it doesn't slow them down. You know, but we've had hurricanes defy odds and head up to the Northeast sometimes. You know, and even NHC is like, well, it shouldn't even be happening, and it happens. That's what I mean. The science sometimes is there's just too much science. There's just too many variables.
Sandy had everybody stumped. That was more of a sort of a hybrid. You know, it's caught everybody off guard. It was
right.
Called Superstorm. It was called Frankenstorm. And in the end, it was hurricane. So, yeah, I mean, you get these morphed type of maybe even asymmetrical type storms that can make it all the way up there. I mean, and there's a warm body of water up there now. So, I mean, there's all kinds of factors. We had Levi Callan on earlier before the season, and he pointed out a few things. But, you know, there's always the wow factor on some of the things. And then other times you say, well, you know, we didn't even hit our marks for this year.
Yeah, and of course, people hate predictions. They always update the predictions and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't get into predictions as much. I mean, it only takes one for sure. Look at Matthew last year. I can't even hardly remember the names in front of Matthew just because that was such a storyline. And, yeah, it's Sandy a couple years before that. So we're always going to have that one system. And, you know, we just have to be ready for it. I think, you know, it's just like tomorrow, you know, we've had these suckers spin up, and like I said, the system in the Gulf, you know, we get that front coming down. Next thing you know, we might get a yellow circle, you know, on Monday or Tuesday, and wake up everybody on the Gulf Coast to be watching tropics.
So real quick, we want to we're starting to get towards the 9 o'clock hour. One question I have for you was, and we kind of touched on this last night, when you're going through your daily routine, when we have a full-blown tropical system or tropical cyclone, named storm, however you want to call it, You're tracking it. It looks like it's going to be a threat to land or even not. And you're sort of going through the motions, talking to people. What is your method to that? Because I think we all sort of go through this chaos with it, you know, with the NHC updates and then the GFS updates and then the Euro updates and the timing. Give us a day in the life of Mike Boylan during a tropical cyclone.
Well, you know what? I have a lot of this Monster energy drink. And I do like my beer and all. And I'm so addicted to hurricanes, I will not drink during hurricane coverage because I have to make the 11 o'clock NHC update. I have to make the new or midnight GFS run. I got to make the 2 a.m. Euro run. So I usually go to bed. I'll wake up at 5 o'clock to see the new NHC advisory because, you know, the intermediate advisories don't give you a new track. So it's 5 a.m. for that. And then, you know, 6 a.m. is the new GFS. So there's always like an hourly something or other that you're watching. And you're like, oh crap, I got, 8 o'clock's coming. Or recon's out. You know, the hurricane hunters will be flying. You want to see the latest pass. So it's like an ongoing. I mean, you know, they develop so slow, but yet the data comes in every hour as far as what's next. And then over the years, I've evolved to understand ensembles. In fact, I got caught many years ago relying solely on operational runs. And actually a couple of good Mets in my area, educated me on, hey, you got to look at ensemble runs because they give you a sign into the future sometimes. So, you got to wait for the ensemble runs to run after the operational runs. So, you start looking at those and then you say, oh, hey, we're starting to see a shift. And then, and I'll throw it out there on social media. Yeah, because you always get a windshield wiper effect. Always. You always get a flip-flop. You'll get a panic, set in. Oh my God, the models are heading toward Houston, and then like even Katrina, it shifted around. So you got to stay up ahead of the curve as far as these shifts in the model runs, and that's what I like to do. I mean, as far as the progression of a system, like let's say the one that's out there right now, I'll just casually watch the models. I will read Twitter, I'll read Facebook, I'll read Weather Underground sites, and people put up a lot of good data, and you just formulate your own opinion if it's something we're going to watch, and then you'll start seeing. And then once it's an Invest, it's like game on. Once a system, we haven't talked about Invest yet, but Invest has become like the new tropical name system because once we get an Invest, it's spaghetti models run. It starts getting in the news more data out there. Hurricane hunters head in. So you just evolve.
A new term this year that for the viewers out there, a new term that NHC is going to be using is the potential tropical cyclone.
We've had two now.
So not to be confused with post-tropical cyclone, but potential tropical cyclone if it's going to be affecting land. So it's basically an Invest that may be affecting land. There's a little bit of gray area there. I think it's going to take some time to get used to. So how much do you weigh in on NHC? Do you put a lot of your sort of focus and weight on them to take the burden off of you, or do you sort of handle it on your own and get your own words out there?
Well, I have learned NHC is very slow, which is good. I mean, they do not make knee-jerk reactions. They very gradually increase percentages and gradually decrease percentages. So they're very, they don't react quick on individual model runs. So I think they're a little bit more hesitant to talk about a potential system before all of us, see it. And that's rightfully so. They can't, scare the public. But sometimes I've been a little bit more, at fault with them because they have not talked about a potential like when it's closer to home. So I know they got to be hesitant, and I think 99% of the time they do an awesome job. But yeah, I read into their wording, and they're looking at the same stuff we're all looking at. They just have to be the official public, announcement for these things and not create panic. So we can do that without causing panic.
And James, do we have any other feedback on Facebook or any of the social media channels?
That's a great
lot of chatter. Seems like a lot of chatter, not a lot of questions. I mean, some of the questions are, we try to get to all of them, but
We have quite a few tonight, and so we do thank everyone who is joining us tonight, not only on the Carolina Weather Group Facebook page, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, and all those other places, but also watching tonight on Mike's weather page on Facebook. So, Mike, thank you to your community who has joined us tonight and showing up in force to support you. Lots of great questions coming in, lots of love as well. Elizabeth wants to know, will this be a replay? She missed most of tonight's show. Yes, it will. Stay right here on Facebook, Elizabeth, because when this is over, a real play, or it will be on our YouTube channel. Let's see if I got any other questions as I fish through all of this love here for you, Mike. Bill watching from St. Petersburg, Florida. Let's see. Robert mentioning Scary living through curfews and things. So it sounds like maybe Robert's been through a few storms. And Sean commenting that it was fun living in Orlando during those years. And Mike, I think he was referring to those years you mentioned where there was one storm after another. Yeah. And I myself was actually vacationing in Florida during Charlie and remember very well piling 6 people into about a 4-person sized car and then driving the heck out of there because the airport was closed.
Yeah, well, the I lived that. And let me tell you what, hurricane clips, plywood, generators, gas. I mean, these are things that you're without power for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And it affected. And then here's one thing you mentioned about the NHC that I always get a bug about is they always show tropical storm warnings coastal, and Weather Channel does an awesome job this year. I always steal their graphics, but they show inland warnings and watches because I think too much is put on the coastlines, and they don't realize. People all the way to the whole half of Florida had a hurricane. With Hurricane Gene, so I think that caught a lot of people off guard. Like, oh my God, we're in Lakeland, Florida. We're living in the middle of Florida, and we got a hurricane warning. So that's maybe over the years has evolved a little bit. I would like to see their graphics go more into land because they don't show how far inland you're going to get systems. But yeah, Orlando was. Man, I remember the tarps on the roofs. You drive the beeline, and
yep,
it was rough.
I was at Disney World, and as anyone who lives in Florida or has a vacation there knows, that is quite the operation. And I remember we were at Epcot, and we'd go into a ride, and you'd come back out, and every time we came back out of a ride, another layer of the park was gone. First, the concessions were gone, then the trash cans, then the plants, and what wasn't able to be removed from the park, they were bolting down with chains. And I think at that point we looked at each other and went, we should probably leave now.
Wait a minute, you were still riding rides and they're like taking down Disney World and you're still riding?
Yeah, the folks in front of us online turned to us one point and said, "You have a car? Can we ride with you?" they too were stranded.
That is Hurricane Hunting 101. That is
Disney World? Right it out of Disney World.
Yes, James, we will shame you on the show if you do that again. There's hurricane shaming now. You know that, right? That's the new thing that developed last year was storm shaming. Everyone watching, if you do, danged if you don't.
Everyone watching, this was before James was part of the show. So
it was probably before you two. Mike, technical question for you as we come up here in the 9 o'clock hour. How has your website evolved over the years? What have you learned? What do you rely on for your website building? Did you have a background in that as you came into it?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I did go to school for marketing. So I figured this is kind of a marketing project, getting the word out. And then I did take a lot of HTML classes in college. And it was it was a hobby originally. But, like I said, it's been a lot of years of taking requests from fans. When I see a message board and see a new graphic, I'll be quick to like, oh man, that thing's awesome. Like right now, let me share this new one that I really like. It's an experimental one that shows it doesn't have the euro on there, but it's just another product that's out there that gives you a good estimate. We're up to 61% chance from the CMC and UK Met. So I'll add that to the site. So it's every year just a little bit more. It's it's definitely evolved. I could probably find the original site one day, and it was back with Ivan. I think Ivan was in 2005. Mm-hmm. That was the last known website I can find on old web archives, and it was pretty basic. So yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoy it.
We are in the era of data for sure. So it is really fun. Any other questions from the panelists? I think we're good to go here, Mike. I think there's one more thing I wanted to add was you have an app that you started this year, correct?
Yeah, the app is kind of I'm not an app maker by any means, but I have had a lot of requests, especially for people who live down in the islands, Bahamas, sailboats that can't access the site because of bandwidth. So one feature I did add on the app, which I pay money on, is that's why we charge for the app. But it takes a screenshot of the site. It's an API program. So when you access, when you click on that, it gives you an image of the site, so you can reduce your bandwidth tremendously and get real-time, up-to-date information. And then of course I add some links, and we do have a system. It's a lot cleaner to just click a button for Invest 95 and see the various models and all. So it's an experiment. It'll never take over the website by any means. It's just I've had a lot of requests over the years to do it, so I did it.
Is that available on iTunes or?
Oh yeah, it's both. Yeah, it's both. And I do have a link on the site. If they go on the top left of the site, there's a link for it. Yeah, and it's had I've had a few hundred people already down. I think I'm almost 1,000. So it's good. It pays for itself. And but the site's the bread and butter. I mean, that's my baby. And as long as people still use PCs, I hope, because if people stop using PCs, I'll be out of luck with the website.
Or you'll just have to evolve into whatever's next. I think folks use Apple and Linux and whatnot. But I think we're gonna go ahead, Scotty. I'm gonna kick it back to you as we wrap up the show. We usually do tweet of the week. We started doing that. Yeah. And I know Eric's got something. He told me not to take his thunder earlier today, so we'll start with him.
Yeah, and Mike, before we start this, one last thing. How can we follow you? I know you have website, your app, social media. Tell us how our followers can follow you. Okay, well, Facebook is Mike's weather page, and on Twitter it's Tropical Update. And I do have links on the site, spaghettymodels.com. There's a link up top that'll have the links to Facebook and Twitter. And email. Feel free to email me, and like I said, I usually answer 99% of the messages. Awesome. And I'm going to pressure James here because I know he normally does this, but as he recaps on our website, we'll be able to maybe plug in your website in our recap on the website. Does that make sense?
We'll link to you if you link to us.
Yeah, that's right.
That was supposed to be like a Italian mobster deal voice, but I just remember that I don't do impersonations very well, so I'm not sure what that was. I'll just stick to the live streaming. All right, well let's go to our tweets of the week. And Mike, if you I know we probably didn't tell you this, but if you want to surf on Twitter for a second and maybe if you have seen something on Twitter that interests you, this is kind of a new segment we're going to do. So, Eric, I see that you have yours. I haven't pulled mine up yet. So, Eric, I want to toss to you first, and we'll go around the panel.
All right, I have to apologize to Shay because I did tell him don't take that tweet. That's going to be my tweet, and then I actually found something that fits in with more about what we were talking about here tonight. So I'm going to share this with you. All right, this is one I saw 3 or 4 days ago. Really interesting graphic by Harrison Tran. It said, this is every model cane the GFS has produced so far this hurricane season. So check that out. This is why we don't look at 384 hours and say, oh my goodness, we're going to see this one in 26 days. That's what the GFS has produced as far as tropical systems in the last basically 2 months.
That's awesome. Yep. Ricky, I see Hampton Roads a couple of times.
And
a couple of doomsday scenarios in Charleston. Thank you to the Saharan air layer is all I have to say.
Definitely. And it's got some strong ones. Yeah, some category 2s, 3s, and 4s getting pretty close there over to the East Coast. So anyway, that's why we don't go out on a limb that far out.
That's great. That's great. All right. Anybody else? I have one, but anybody else have one they want to share? I'm looking.
See, I've got one. I'll put up on screen. Let me end Eric's presentation.
Thank you.
Pull
Sorry.
mine up. And let me know when you can see it. So this is one of the shelf clouds from today. This is the one that came down from the northeast. This is from Brian Ross, otherwise known as Kentucky Ross on Facebook. And he was out with, I think he was with the SCDNR, so the Department of Natural Resources boat on a research mission out in the ocean. They were several miles out when the shelf cloud came along. It's just a very radial, very symmetrically, just sort of a beautiful sight to see, where it's basically an encroaching shelf cloud with heavy rains behind it. So you can see that, you can almost see the winds really kicking up behind it. Maybe in the far distance, some of the capping going on, but just a beautiful sight. So that's my tweet of the day outside the water spout that I saw. I thought this one just had some just beautiful features to it. So that's my tweet of the week.
I saw someone share that on your page, and I thought that was really cool. Really cool picture. I'll share mine next, and I've actually got two, if that's okay. Is that all right?
No.
Maybe? All right, maybe not. This first one is James actually put the talking about the Birmingham flooding earlier today. This was off of James Spann's Twitter feed. As you can see, there's a full-size car floating down a river.
Not just floating, but like with ease. That just goes to show the force of that water.
Yeah, so crazy.
I've got to comment on that real quick, too, because my sister lives down there in Birmingham, and she said she went through that area about 15 minutes before the storm started, right through the Vestavia area there outside of Birmingham. So I said, thanks for getting out of there quickly.
Yeah, that was crazy. And my second one, congratulations to our good buddy, Brad Panovich. He was voted the AMS Broadcaster of the Year today. Very well deserved. I'm sure you all follow WX Brad on Twitter, and if you don't, you need to. Brad's an overall great guy and very dedicated to informing not only us here in the Carolinas, but everywhere around the country about the weather. So for me, and I think everyone else here at the Carolina Weather Group, we want to congratulate Brad for that award, and that's a pretty big deal. He gets to pick up this award in January at the AMS Broadcast Conference. So congratulations to Brad Panovich on winning this year's AMS Broadcaster of the Year.
What an honor. Good job to him.
It is. That's my tweets of the week. Anybody else have any? I think I see something from Ricky. Maybe? No? Ricky's gone.
Mike, I think, has one.
Well, you guys threw me in there. I had to look really quick, but this one just strikes me because I boat a lot here in Florida. This is from Jeff Gammons, but it was liked by our local Paul Delgado on Channel 13 Fox. But I've seen that a lot. I'm sure you all have seen a lot. But that is typical Florida rain.
Yep, very much so.
Looks almost like a microburst or something. We had fun with that last year, calling them rain bombs.
Yeah, and I will show you. This is my sign I hang in our RV when we go camping. And people get a kick out of it. So that's my tweet. I didn't tweet it yet.
Very cool.
I always hang it up on my motorhome in case anybody wants to talk weather.
I've got one that I will pop up on the screen here real fast. Let me do the screen share. This is one that I thought I was going to go viral with, and I was really disappointed that I did not. But I was out this past weekend. I was in Greensboro. You can see my little locator there. Two polygons came together, and I really thought it was a guy. There's a little, I drew the eye in the mouth. We got the nose. He's wearing a hat. He's kind of got like a bowl cut in the back here. You can see how it kind of comes down from his neck a little. I got one reply from my aunt. So,
James, we love you. We love you.
I got the hashtag and everything. I thought people would be all over this, but here it is. Yeah. Second attempt at going viral. Thanks for the polygons.
See, you're trying too hard, James. You're trying.
That looks like a person. I know.
Hey, David, I'm going to screen share yours, and you can talk about what's your pick of the week is.
Yeah, my pick of the week is from our own backyard here in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is just north of us in Greene County, and we had some nice thunderstorms rumble through the area Saturday evening, and we had some reported wind gusts up to about 60, 65 miles per hour, and that left some of the tree damage there in Greene County, which is about 10 to 15 miles north of the city of Charlottesville, and a nice little microburst that happened there. It wasn't only there, but it was also in Fluvanna County, about 5-10 miles to the east of the city of Charlottesville. And one of my friends was driving through it at the time. He was like, "Oh my God, this is the worst I've ever seen it. It looks like a hurricane just went through." He was having to dodge trees left and right on his way home. So we had some fun here Saturday night, and that was one of our viewers sending that into our Twitter page there.
Very cool. All right, Peter, I don't know if you have one since your internet's being kind of funky tonight.
Let me try to send one real fast.
Why he does that, we did have a viewer question come across here talking about the severe potential for Friday. The question was thoughts on severe potential for Friday, and can you talk about how uncommon it is to get dew points down in the 50s in July and August here in the Southeast. I'll let David talk about his area up there because I think you guys are under the gun maybe a little bit more than we are here in the Carolinas with severe weather, and then we'll kind of talk about the lower dew points.
Yeah, it was entertaining watching everybody here in Virginia freak out. Oh my goodness, day 3 slight risk. What is going on? This and that, and some of the soundings from the 3-kilometer NAM were like strong tornado, PDS tornado. Oh my goodness, look at that nice curved photograph and the back winds and veer. I'm like, okay, first of all, you got a jet coming in that's about 10 knots at 850. You got decent upper level ventilation. And then today, marginal risk for day 2. Be very localized, I think. Damaging wind is going to be a threat there, but the kinematics and the wind shear just doesn't seem to be there. It's coming in at the wrong angle. It's too positively tilted for my liking to see any significant severe weather here in Virginia. So that'll be something I'll watch for tomorrow afternoon, but I'm not overly concerned about it, at least here in the Virginias.
And I think that's the case here. And I'll let Eric talk about the Tennessee parts of Tennessee in just a second. Here in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina, I don't think this makes it all the way down to Shea, but for maybe James and I think there's a chance of maybe an isolated severe thunderstorm. This is a pretty strong front moving through. I mean, it's got some cooler, drier air behind it. Something we're normally seeing in the springtime, but I don't think it's anything to get hyped up over. A few thunderstorms. We've seen damaging winds all summer long, and I think that's the biggest potential is maybe a few severe thunderstorms with damaging wind. And talking about the dew points, it's not uncommon. I think this happens maybe once a summer that we kind of get one of these stronger cold fronts to come in and give us some cooler, more pleasant air. So I don't think it's overly weird that this is happening. We normally see this once or even sometimes twice in the summertime. I remember a couple of years ago it happened on the 4th of July, and people were actually wearing hoodies and had blankets and stuff, as they were watching fireworks. So it's not uncommon. It happens occasionally, but I know a lot of people are going to be welcoming in the cooler and more drier air. So Eric, what's it look like out in your area for severe weather?
Yeah, it doesn't look real great here either. The first day 2 risk came out this morning, had us in a slight, but I was a little suspicious of it because the timing in this area, a lot of the initial wave of it looks like it's going to be early on Friday, maybe even pre-dawn, which is certainly not optimal. And I see as they updated at midday today, they dropped us almost out of the marginals. So we're in a marginal risk for Friday as well. Again, you got to keep an eye on those marginals, but the timing doesn't look real good. And especially a lot of times we get, if we get the early morning convection, that's just kind of your general thunderstorm type of weather, then we don't get enough time by afternoon to really recover from that morning round. And if we get anything, it's usually where the early morning stuff died out. They have got more destabilization going on during the day. So timing is not a good factor here. And yeah, it looks like it might be more wave-ish rather than that kind of potent front coming through. And I'll make one more point here. Sorry to drag this on, but I did see that Philip Klotzbach just tweeted just a few minutes ago. We were talking about 2004, and he reminds us that the first named storm of 2004, Alex, did not form until August 1st, and the season ended up with 5 U.S. landfalling hurricanes and an ACE 200% of normal.
Yep.
So we haven't even started.
Yep. No, we're very, very young, very early in the season still. Real quick, Scotty's got a picture from Pete, but I did promise Helicity Designs that I would show this, and Scotty brought up a good point about the front making it here. I think we're going to see the front make it to the South Carolina-Georgia border, but it's going to be so weak by the time it gets here that we'll probably see just some afternoon storms associated with the sea breeze. But here is the shirt.
Nice.
I don't know if you can see it all.
Good stuff.
Our fronts come to die. So I've showed your shirt on air. I appreciate it. It's a great quality shirt if you need one, order it from them. Back to you, Scotty.
Yeah, go visit helicitydesigns.com. Some really cool weather stuff there. So, Peter, I'll let you talk about your picture, and then we'll log off for the night.
All right. So, yeah, this was the tornado that came through the other day on the eastern shore of Maryland. It was Queen Anne's County, rated an EF2. And you see some of those pictures there, some pretty bad damage. This actually happened overnight.
Yep.
It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, I think. So I'm sure not many people were that prepared for it. There was one injury, but I don't think there was any deaths, so that was good. But it did have, 125-mile-an-hour winds, and there was gas leaks, power outages, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I don't think too many people were prepared for this, but it happened, and luckily there weren't any deaths, so that was good.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching the Carolina Weather Group tonight. For all you who watched tonight, I was watching our Facebook Live. We're over 100 viewers at several points throughout the show. So we do this every Wednesday night. We're just a bunch of weather geeks that get around and talk about weather, and very happy to have Mike on with us tonight. Go visit Mike's weather page. As well as the Carolina Weather Group. And next week, we don't have a show scheduled per se. We don't have any guests lined up, so we may just end up talking about weather or whatever. But we do have an active August lined up for you guys. So look for our Facebook page, our events pages. That'll kind of give you the schedules. For everyone here at the Carolina Weather Group, we hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening. Enjoy the weekend and stay safe. And we'll see you next Wednesday night.